Okay, so what if everything you've been taught about business is just wrong? You know, the idea that competition is good, that you should just improve on what's already out there? Well, today we're jumping headfirst into Peter Thiel's 0 to 1 to check out his pretty radical blueprint for building the future. And spoiler alert, it is not about copying what works. It's about creating something the world has never, ever seen before. So let's just start where Thiel himself starts, with his all-time favorite interview question. What important truth do very few people agree with you on? Seriously, take a second and think about that. It's way harder than it sounds, right? Because it's not just a test of how smart you are, it's really a test of your courage. And for Thiel, being able to answer that question is the absolute starting point for creating anything new.
And Thiel's first unpopular truth? Oh, it goes right for the throat of one of the biggest dogmas in our world, our obsession with competition. I mean, we're taught from day one that competition makes us stronger, that it fuels innovation. But what if it's actually this destructive thing that's holding all of us back?
You see, after the dot-com crash, Silicon Valley got this kind of collective PTSD. A whole new set of rules popped up, and they all preached caution. Make tiny incremental changes. Stay lean, which was really code for don't have a big plan. And above all, focus on beating your competitors. But Thiel just looks at that and says, nope, that's a recipe for being average. He thinks the real truth is the total opposite. You've got to risk being bold. A bad plan is way better than no plan, and those super competitive markets, they're a trap that just destroys profits. So all right, if competition is this big trap, how do you get out of it? Well, it takes a pretty huge shift in how we even think about progress. It's all about learning how to go from 0 to 1. First, let's talk about the kind of progress we see all the time. Thiel calls it 1 to N, or horizontal progress. This is basically just copying things that already work. Like you take one typewriter and you build 100 more just like it. This is really what globalization is all about. Taking a model that works in one place and just spreading it everywhere. It's familiar, it's easy to picture, but real, true innovation, that's totally different. Thiel calls this 0 to 1, or vertical progress. This has nothing to do with copying. It's about creating something brand spanking new. This is technology. It's not building another typewriter, it's inventing the word processor. And that's the kind of progress that's hard to imagine, for the simple reason that nobody's done it before. So you've got these two big forces, right? Globalization, spreading old ideas from 1 to N, and technology, creating totally new stuff from 0 to 1. And Thiel's point here is actually pretty urgent. In a world with limited resources, just copying what we've already done is not going to cut it for the long haul. Our future literally depends on our ability to create new technology. And this leads us to Thiel's most provocative, most controversial idea of all. If competition is basically a death trap where all your profits get competed away to nothing, then the only logical goal for an ambitious startup is to build a monopoly. Yep, you heard me right, a monopoly. He puts it perfectly with this amazing twist on Tolstoy. All happy companies are different. Each one earns a monopoly by solving a unique problem. All failed companies are the same. They fail to escape competition. Wow, the takeaway is just so stark, isn't it? Success isn't about being a little bit better than the other guy. It's about being the only guy. It comes from being radically, completely unique. And hey, the numbers don't lie. Just look at 2012. If you were an airline, a brutally competitive industry, you made a measly 37 cents of profit for every passenger. Now, look at Google, a creative monopoly. They kept over 21% of their revenue as pure profit. This is Thiel's proof right here, that capitalism and competition are actually opposites. Think about it. Capitalism is about building up capital, but in perfect competition, all the profits just get wiped out.
So why don't we see this more clearly? Well, it's because companies are actively trying to fool us. The real gap between a monopoly and a competitive business is just massive. But monopolists, they'll play down how dominant they are so the government doesn't come after them, and the companies stuck in that brutal competition, they'll exaggerate how unique they are to try and get investors. We're basically being sold a lie from both sides.
Okay, so if the goal is to create a monopoly, how in the world do you actually build one? The cool thing is, Thiel doesn't just leave us hanging with the theory, he gives us a clear blueprint.
He lays out 4 key things a durable monopoly has. First, proprietary technology. That isn't just a little better, it's got to be at least 10 times better than whatever's in second place. Second, you've got network effects, like Facebook, where the service gets better for everyone as more people join. Third is economies of scale, where the business just gets stronger as it gets bigger. And last but not least, a powerful, trusted brand.
And the strategy to get there?
It's completely the opposite of what you'd think. You don't try to conquer a huge market on day one. No, you start small, like really small. You find a tiny, specific niche that no one else cares about, and you completely dominate it. You become the only fish in that tiny pond. And once you own it, then you can start to scale up, moving into the slightly bigger pond next door. It's exactly the playbook Amazon used with books, or what Facebook did starting with just Harvard students.
This all leads to a really critical shift in your mindset. The goal is not to disrupt an existing industry. I mean, that word itself, disrupt, immediately puts you into a fight. It's a competitive mindset from the very beginning. Instead, Thiel says, just focus purely on creation. Your goal is to build something so new and so valuable that you avoid competition completely.
But that raises a question, right? Why is this 0 to 1 way of thinking so rare these days? Well, Thiel argues it's not just about business tactics. It's tied to something much deeper, a cultural shift in how we see the future itself. In fact, your whole outlook on the future might be what determines if you can even imagine a 0 to 1 company.
So Thiel maps it out with 4 ways of looking at the future. On one side, you have optimistic versus pessimistic. And on the other, you have a definite future you can plan for versus an indefinite one that just sort of happens. America, back in the 50s and 60s, we were all about definite optimism. We had huge, concrete plans like the Apollo program. But today, Thiel says we've drifted into indefinite optimism. We kind of feel like the future will be better, but we don't have any specific plans for it. And that explains a lot, right? It explains why instead of big engineering projects, our smartest people get pulled into finance or law, careers that are all about shuffling existing things around and keeping your options open for a future you can't even define.
And that right there is why, for Thiel, a bad plan is always, always better than no plan at all. Having a definite vision, even if it's got flaws, gives you agency. It lets you act, lets you build, lets you create a specific future. Just drifting along in an indefinite world, that just leaves everything up to chance.
And really, that's the ultimate message from 0 to 1. Success, whether it's for a company or for you as a person, is never an accident. It's not like winning the lottery. It's the result of a deliberate plan, a specific design. So the final question Thiel leaves us with isn't about what's going to happen in the future. It's about building it. What future will you design?